Hello, we're live. Welcome to another live coaching. I don't know what number this is. Dum. If you're in the chat, let us know. Whew. I've had a crazy week. How about you guys? Did you get on the water? Has it been good? Has it been windy? On Monday, I can't. So we saw each other on Sunday. It's been windy. Monday, super windy. Maui's been super windy. You can see the trees behind me. It's been blowing like crazy. And Monday, windy, really gusty. I'm on a 4 or 5, fully powered up and having fun, sailing an old board that I like and testing some different fins on it. Everything's going fine. In fact, I've got a little bit of video. I can load this up as I tell my story. But I want to hear from you guys as well. Did you sail this week? Did you sail this week? All right, let me see. Yeah, here, I've got a bit of footage. Hey, Jorg. All right, so this is the day. I'm on the 4-5. It's super windy. And not only windy, it's super gusty, which is important for the story later on. And I'm testing some things. I'm not, just kind of having fun. I've got this board. It's a bit of a longer board, more of a big wave board, but I wanted to test some different fin setups, and the waves are really weird. It's not normal how it was breaking at Hokipa, but still fun, but kind of strange. It was more segmented than normal, and also a lot choppier. And yeah, like I said, really, really gusty. So I'm just kind of doing my session, testing my fins, trying to find some sections look like it could be good for a 360, and so you could see I was looking for a 360, but you can see it's really, really windy, really, really gusty, and yeah, I've got this board that I like, testing different fins, and you can see it's pretty choppy. There's a 360, a little bit different than normal Hokipa. You see the wave is pretty broken up, and yeah, I start kind of getting into a little bit of a rhythm, but kind of gusty conditions, a little bit difficult conditions, kind of weird, not normal conditions for Hokipa at all. But at least it wasn't too crowded. It's been very crowded after the competition. So like, yeah, just finding some fun little waves, finding some corner pockets. That's what I call the corner pocket section there. And yeah, it was a good time. It was a little bit funky. It wasn't like great conditions for Maui. It can be a lot better. The video makes it look better than it was. But still fun. I was having a good time and not really thinking of much. I was just kind of focusing on the sailing, trying to find some sections. Trying to land some moves, but you can see it's kind of choppy. It's a lot choppier than Hokipa normally is. And yeah, just whatever. I wasn't really sailing with that much intention. It was after the competition, and I wanted to test some fins. And yeah, just kind of have a fun day after so much attention on the competition. Anyway, so let's get this story on the road. So I go for this 360. I fall. I fall off the wave. It's all good. It's all good. You can see there's another wave behind. So I start getting my gear ready to water start. And as I'm getting it ready, I move the sail. The a very strong gust comes. You can see there's a lot of wind. Very strong gust comes, picks the board up, like up into the air, and then slams it down on my head. And I was totally not expecting it. So it slammed me on my head with it's kind of like the rail of the board, I believe, just slammed me right in my head. And so I was seeing stars. So it was not even something that was in my. I just didn't even think that that could happen. It was just so weird. The board just kind of floated up and then slammed down on me. And then suddenly I couldn't see because my face was full of blood and I couldn't see. So then I'm like wiping the blood out of my eyes, holding my hand here so that I can see water start get into the beach. And I have no idea at this point like how bad it is. I just know, okay, I've hit my head hard and I'm bleeding. And so I see some people on the beach. I'm like, how bad is it? How bad is it? And they're like, oh, it's bad. And they don't want to look at my head. I was like, oh shit, okay. So I go to the lifeguards and they wash it off with some water. And they're like, yeah, you need some stitches. And I didn't feel comfortable driving because I felt a little bit out of it after hitting the head. So I called my dad. My dad came down and picked me up and took me to the hospital. And they ended up not stitching it. They ended up gluing it. You can't really see much, but this was all open, and it's just from the blunt force. It was nothing sharp hit me. It was just the blunt force from the rail of the board, but it hit me so hard. And then I had this massive swelling that now has been falling into my face. So like my face looks really weird. I don't know if you guys can pick that up in the video, but like I had this huge swelling on my forehead that's now coming down into my face, and so I have these like weird swollen things around my eyes, and it was a bizarre week. It was a really bizarre week, really bizarre accident. I was looking forward to sailing during this week. It's been a good windy week on Maui, and I wanted more than anything to be in the water. And instead, I've been out of the water and dealing with this little injury. So that's been my week. Kind of crazy, unexpected. Uh, I don't know if there's any lesson to be learned from it. Just accept the knowledge that that can happen. So being aware when it's really gusty and really strong wind of what your board is doing, and maybe always making sure you've kind of got a hand on the board or a hand up so that if you're between the tail of the board and the sail, that can't happen to you, where then the board gets caught by the wind and flips up on you. I don't know. It's like I said, I've never had a situation like that before, or anything similar to that. It really caught me by surprise. All right, let's jump into the coaching. Jorg, hello, hello. Matt had a good session. Yeah, it can be hard to walk when it's super windy. I know this in Pozo where it's blowing 3-7 and you've got these slippery little rocks and you're just like trying to balance, trying to get in the water. Woof. All right. Charles is sailing 15 degrees. Nice. Hey, Dom. Ragnar. Suna. Suna had a nice Christmas lunch with the surfers. Awesome. Yeah, Matt, I'm happy I didn't get hit by the fins or get hit somewhere else. I mean, in the end, I'm fine. It was disruptive to my week, but otherwise I'm fine. I'm gonna get a little scar, I guess. There. Hello, Peter. Hello, hello. Hans. Nice. Hans had a 3-7 full power session. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna load up the coaching, the Facebook group, and let's get into it. All right. So let's refresh this page in case there's anything new since I loaded this. All right, new post. All right, so Paul posted an interview with Nick Jupe on his experience competing for the first time in 25 years at the Tyree Wave Classic. Nice. So I haven't watched this yet, but I will. And I think it's a really interesting topic. Competition is not just for the pros, and I think competition has more benefits actually if you're not a pro, even because then you can have more fun with it. Your career doesn't depend on it, so you don't have as much pressure, and you learn a lot about uh, yeah, performing under pressure, and it teaches you a lot about your windsurfing. So I recommend doing competitions, doing one every few years or one a year if that's available to you. I think it's a good experience. I'm looking forward to watching this interview, and I think it can help you improve, and I think it can be fun. All right, Peter's in the chat, and he posted this of forward loops. He feels like he's getting halfway around and landing on his shoulder and back, and his goal is to water start out of them. So right on, Peter. This is awesome commitment. You're really committing to this. Uh, which I love to see, and you're getting there. You're pretty close. I think you're closer than you think you are. A couple big things that I see. The first, which is what I mentioned in this comment, is that when you're not able to get as much height because you're jumping off of chop or a little swell, you really need to throw the rotation right away. There isn't time to stall it. There isn't time to delay. And so if you throw, so here you're pushing off, you want to already be pulling in at this point. And so you're really starting to sheet in here, and the nose of the board is already touching the water. It's too late. You want to get the rotation started off the ramp. Let me see if I've got a video I can load up. Otherwise, I'll find one on Continent 7. Let me just see if I have something here. All right, I'm gonna go into Continent 7 and we'll find something there. And we can look at when people are pulling the trigger. Oh, this is going kind of slow. All right, let's see. Forward loop. They might call it spin loop or something else. Huh. I don't know what's going on here. These are kind of weird. I don't know what's going on with Continent 7 or if it's an issue with my internet connection. But all right, here we go. So this is bigger waves, more wind. But even with the bigger waves and more wind and the ability to get more height, you can see that as he's leaving, he's extending, which is what you're doing, and that's good. But then as soon as he's left the ramp, so as soon as he's in the air, so right as the tail's coming off, he's sheeting in and tucking up his legs. So we like to say, you go small when you're hunting for the ramp, to tall as you're going off the ramp, to ball. So when you're doing the rotation. So here he's small, he's getting low, right? He's compressing so that he can push off of it, off of the water, right? So compressing, small, and then he goes tall, and then he goes into ball. But the key thing that we're looking at here is the timing of the rotation. So he pushes off the ramp, but then as soon as that tail's off the board, off the water, he's already sheeting in, right? The sheeting in starts here. We see it more dramatic at this point, but in order for it to look like this here, it has to start. He has to start contracting his muscles here, right? So as soon as the tail's going off the board, sorry, as soon as the tail of the board is going off the water, he's already starting that sheeting in motion. And that's really important for these flat water loops. Nice, beautiful landing there. So what we wanna see, you can get more compression in the knees, so we've got a little bit of compression, want a little bit more, so you wanna think small, so a little bit more compression. Well, actually, you're getting some compression, but you can have even a little bit more. Then you go tall. You can think of going tall a little bit sooner, so just a little bit sooner on the tall, and you wanna really think about pushing the sail up as well. So instead of keeping the sail close to you as you're going off the ramp and pushing with the board, you're also pushing the sail up. So you're making your body an X, and then right at this moment, you're already sheeting in. So this moment, the tail of the board is right about to go off the ramp. You want to be sheeting in hard, going into that rotation. You can go into the rotation exactly how you're doing it. And this is the biggest mistake that you're making. So if we're going to fix one thing, it's this. And so if you're going to focus on one thing, it's when you're committing to the loop. And so it's just starting this process earlier. Now, there's a few other things in here that you could do to help improve that process. I like that you're twisting with the hips, that's good, but I wanna see a wider grip. So I want you to move this backhand farther back on the boom, and I want you to look over this shoulder. Looking over the shoulder is gonna look where you're rotating. You're not as blind. It helps make a quicker rotation. So if we're looking at priorities, first priority is throwing that rotation sooner. So we're thinking, small to tall to ball, getting that big tall X, but then pulling in as soon as you're going off that ramp. So it's while you still have a little bit of contact with the ramp, you're already starting to sheet in. You can even start sheeting in while you're still at the top of the chop or the swell, even a little bit earlier than what we saw in that video. But definitely a lot earlier than what you're doing here. That's the number one thing. Number two thing is wider grip. Getting that wider grip will help make your rotation more horizontal and faster. And then the third most important thing is getting that head looking over that rear shoulder in the direction of your rotation. And I would work on those in that order, one, two, three. And if you can get those, you're going to land them, period. You're going to land them. That's it. So that's you're over the fear factor. You're nailing a lot of points. You just have to start throwing it sooner, and then even just starting it sooner, you might already land them. But in order to make it better, safer, more horizontal rotation, you want to make sure that you are getting that wide grip and your head is looking over the shoulder. Yeah, Quinton is saying that he's so afraid to send this move. The fear is the biggest challenge when we're dealing with the forward loop. And my advice is working on it in small incremental steps so that you never have a big fear cliff that you have to jump off of. You're jumping off of little steps, and that's helping you work into the move, easing into the move, uh, doing working on the technique, such as doing the loop out of the straps where you're sort of doing like some people call it an Ezzy flop because I really talk about it a lot in my forward loop coaching where you're jumping up and doing the rotation, but you're out of the straps, and that gets you into the feeling of the rotation. And then as well, there's a bunch of exercises you can do that then help make it so that you don't have to feel like you're jumping off this huge fear cliff. All right, let's get back to the coaching group. So Jeff has a question about these little fins on the back of Kai's board. And this is from a company called Mink Systems. And I've never tried them. There's some interesting comments in the chat. I love these discussions that happen in the group. So Hans, who is an engineer and has a master's degree in this field, doesn't see any reason that they could help. And yeah, I think it's I don't know, interesting. So he doesn't really see any benefit aerodynamically or fluid dynamically. But some people, we've got Jeff somewhere here. says that he's been using them and really likes how they feel. So, yeah, give it a try. It's not something that I would use. I feel like I don't necessarily understand the benefit, and there's a little bit more risk because they look kind of sharp. And I like I like how my fins work. Channels on the bottom of the board, different story. I feel like if you're getting a custom board and you're getting channels, that can help with some grip. Um, that can help a lot with grip. But the Mink systems, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, especially all the way back on the board. Like Hans is saying, in order for them to have an effect, it seems like they would need to be farther forward, but I'm not sure. Anyway, next up, we've got a post from Bart. This full screen. All right, so here, some wave down the line wave sailing. This looks pretty fun. Fun conditions, float and ride, fun sailing. I didn't catch in the caption where this is. I'll have to check that out if you watch the video. Looks fun. Getting some easy rides. I like Bart staying active. All right, now we've switched. Now we're tack. Yeah, some nice cars. All right, here's another wave. We're back to the first spot. We've got a bit more speed, wide grip on the boom, getting low. So I'm going to turn off the sound here. So there's one big thing that Bart you could do differently in your bottom turns that will help improve your wave sailing, and this is something that most of us can do. It's probably the biggest single change. Whoa, nice. I like that. I really like whitewater turns. I think turning on the whitewater is a great exercise, can be really radical. Bart is really able to make this work because he's getting that high five. He's presenting the bottom of the board to the whitewater. See the angle of the board. So he's getting that high five. The power of the whitewater is transferring into the board. Boom, boom, boom. Pulls it off. I think that felt good, felt radical. But there's one thing, Bart, that I want you to focus on in your bottom turn, and that is not being so upright. And so here's a photo sequence, and we can see that in the bottom turn, your body, if we're going through these little sequence photos, is still very upright. And we want to get it so that you're leaning over and you're getting more bend at the waist. And so you can think about really sheeting out, looking around the clue where you're going on the wave, and getting this bend at the hips. So it's like you're trying to touch your chest to your knees. And it's good you're starting out with these nice bent legs. You can keep them even a little bit more bent and really trying to get that bend at the waist and trying to lean over. In order to do that, you've got to push the sail away from you and then sheet out and lean into the pocket that's created when you're sheeting out. And so then instead of using the power of the sail and sheeting in, like you're doing here, kind of like an entry to a jibe, or here to get into the turn, you want to be using your body and the rail. And so in order to do that, you need to be sheeting out. Because if you think about going into a jibe, okay, you initiate the jibe by sheeting in, but if you stay in that sheeting in position, what's going to happen? You're going to stop because you're going to get blocked by the wind. And so you have to sheet out in order to get through the wind to do more of a U-shaped turn. In addition to that, by sheeting out, it creates space for your body to lean into. Hugely important. So what we can think about is already at the beginning of this sequence, really sheeting out aggressively, looking around the clue. So instead of trying to look through the sail, you're looking around the clue at where you're going to go on the wave, and then leaning forward, trying to touch your chest to your knees, trying to touch the nose to the water, leaning into that gap that's created as you sheet out the sail. However you think about it, whether you're trying to touch your chest to your knees or touch the nose to the water, you got to be leaning forward and getting that bend in the hips. This is a position that you can practice on land as well. But remember that if you're able to stand on land, it's not the right position. The position is an unbalanced position when you're on land, because what we're trying to do is get our weight out over the bottom chin rail, get that board on its rail using our body weight and body power. So it's not a position that you can be in on land, unless you're supported by something, right? So if you're practicing this position on land, you want to have a wall or a chair, something that you can lean on and lean into. Here's a post from Paul. Oh, doesn't work. So I don't know what this is, Paul. Paul has an example, but we can't load it up. All right, Michael is trying to buy some 2024 sails. He's specifically talking about the Ezzy sails, but this is true of any brand. So yeah, the 2024 sails now are starting to be developed, and their availability will depend on the country, when they're brought in, with the different shops. Yeah, it's not consistent around the world. All right, we are caught up here. I'm going to answer the questions in the chat. If you guys have any more questions as well, we can hang out and talk for a bit. So Eric is asking, was Kai's board extreme at this year's Aloha? No, he's using boards from Keith from Quattro. They're not super extreme. Matt saying that I don't think you want any more sharp bits on your board. I agree. I'm not into super sharp things. Hello, Axel. Moin, moin. Yeah, Axel, it is windy. I said at the beginning of the chat, though, I banged my head earlier this week. It's been really windy, and I had the fun session, really gusty, and my board blew into my head in the water really hard. Cracked open my forehead. This was all open. I was bleeding. I couldn't see. And yeah, so I'm out of the water. I'm still out of the water. I'm waiting for this to heal up and not be as tender before I go back in the water. When I was in the hospital, they said a week. So a week would be tomorrow. So maybe I can get in the water tomorrow. But yeah, pretty gnarly. Oliver is saying, wear a helmet. That's good advice, actually. Wear a helmet. A helmet would have protected me. A helmet comes about here. That is good advice, actually. So in the windsurfing masterclass that I was teaching in Denmark, we came up with some dryland bottom turn training, and the whole group found it really effective. Hans was in that group, and it's something that he still does every day before his sessions and finds it really effective. Yes. Charles is asking how the Vulcan course went. Some of you guys were on the Vulcan course. I should check back in with the people that were on it. I think it was good. I think that the method was good. I think the challenge that some people had was that the conditions were not there. So we did it in early spring last year, or this year, early spring of this year. And a lot of people then didn't have the conditions to do the practice. That's something that I've learned is really important whenever you're trying to learn something virtually or learn something at all, is you need to have the chance to implement it. And that can be, the dry land stuff. So like for the tacking, you can do a lot on dry land, but also you need to get on the water, and especially something as radical as the Vulcan, where you're really learning something different, and it's really different than what you're used to doing. It's a way of using your board and your equipment that's really different. Getting time on the water to practice is really important. So you want to time your learning around periods where you expect to get on the water. So I think that's pretty important. Eric said he can claim the Vulcan. Awesome. 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 Cool. All right, guys. Well, I think I am going to call it a day. Thank you for showing up. I hope that you get some wind this week and you get on the water. And if you do, make a post in the group. And if you don't, you can also make a post in the group. You can post a question. What has been perplexing you in windsurfing? What do you not understand? Or maybe it's not even a question. Maybe it is a comment. Maybe it's something in windsurfing that you've observed that you want to share. Post it in the group. And all right, so Eric says that the learning mindset was the most important part of the Vulcan course for him. I think the mental side is so important for learning anything, but especially in windsurfing. The mental side is huge. And having a strategy and a process for your learning, having the right mindset is, I think, often the difference between making it and not making it. And it's the biggest difference I see between, people that sit on a plateau for years and years and years and the pro guys. Is a lot to do with mindset, and the mindset it manifests in a lot of different ways. It's something that I think was really interesting in the coaching that we are doing in Denmark in September, the in-person coaching. We didn't have great conditions for the first few days of week 2. The wind was light, and there were days where I think a lot of the people in the group wouldn't normally get on the water, and we went down to the beach, and we're like, we're here to train, we're going to get in the water. And I found it really interesting that the only other people windsurfing were pros. Mark Pare, 4th in the world this year. Lena, the local pro from Denmark. It just, every day that we were there and the conditions were really not great and the wind was light, one of the pros was also in the water training. And it just shows the mindset that there's something to learn, even if the wind is light. And it's sailing on those days that then increases your base, increases your foundation, so that then you can catch more waves when the wind is better. It has a compounding effect. So if you're sailing on the days where the wind is light and you're working on your tacks or working on your light wind sailing, then when you have good waves, that's out of the way and you're making more tacks. Your light wind sailing is more on point, so you're catching more waves. It all compounds and helps you to grow and have more fun. So mindset is super important. Christoph says no wind in Santa Cruz. Oof. Charles says needs another course. So funny thing, this week I was planning, I've got, you guys can't see it behind me, but I've got 3 new courses that I've planned out, and my goal this week was to do all the filming for them. But I've been out of the water, so I've got to figure out my strategy for that. But yes, I'm definitely into it. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. Have a good week, good windy week, and post in the Facebook group. I'll see you all next week, Sunday. Goodbye.